Omakyanatimanlasya Jnanjana Snakya Sakshanmilitam Yena Tasmai Sigurave Namah. Namo Vihe-Bhaktivaibhava Pastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namini. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Dasatana Srila Prabhupada Ki. Hare Krishna. I'm very happy to be with all of you today. Today we will go in the 10th chapter, the last chapter of the second canto, and we will speak on verses 1 to 9. So, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions that just a minute. So we will start with the first verse. The first 9 verses are concerned with the 10 topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. A Mahapurana, like the Srimad Bhagavatam, has 10 topics. The lesser Puranas, it is said, are concerned with 5 topics. But we will read text 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Shuka Uvacha Atra Sarasvisharasya Stanam Posnam Uttaya Manvantare Sanukata Nirodha Muktir Asraya. So the translation. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, in the Srimad Bhagavatam there are 10 divisions of statements regarding the following: the creation of the universe, the sub-creation, planetary systems, protection by the Lord, the creative impetus, the change of Manus, the signs of God, returning home back to Godhead, liberation, and the summum bonum. So these are 10 topics, but I will now share PowerPoint presentation, so which is on the screen here. This is from the book Srimad Bhagavatam at a glance from Mother Narayani, and here you see these 10 topics. There's 9 leaves of the lotus, and in the middle you see the Asraya, the summum bonum. All these other leaves, they are meant to come to support this summum bonum. So there are 10 topics. The first topic is Sarga, the creation of the universe. These topics in the next verses, they will be discussed in more detail. So then the Visarga, the creation of Lord Brahma, sub-creation we can say. And then we have Sthana, the planetary systems. Then we have Poshan, protection. Buddhi, the creative impetus, the desire that moves everything in this world. And then you have the Manvantar, the change of Manus, that's described in the 8th canto in detail. And then Isha Anukata, the signs of God, of all the incarnations. Then Nirodha, going back home, back to Godhead. Of course, this is the Mausala Lila, that interesting. Then we have Mukti, liberation. Here we see Maharaj Pariksit going back to Godhead, and then we have the Summanbhowman, the Asraya. So we have these 10 topics: Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, Poshnam, Uttaya, Manvantar, Issu, Anukata, Nirodha, Muktir, Asraya. Now I want to do with you an exercise. So you have these 10 topics before you, also in the word-for-word translation. So I will project a picture, and you tell me which of the 10 topics it is. Alright? So that's the first one. What is that about? That nobody knows. Maharaj Pariksit in the womb. Mother Ambika, yes?
Hare Krishna, thank you, Maharaj. Is it protection by the Lord?
Yeah, Poshanam. That's Maharaj Pariksit, protected by Vishnu in the womb. And what is this? That, please?
I was going to suggest Ishanukata.
Ishanukata. Yes, the signs of God, all the pastimes of the Lord, yeah. That, yes, also the Summanbhowman is there. It's not that the picture may refer only to one. It can one of the 10 topics can be different, and this one, that who is this?
Can we say Sarga, Maharaj?
Please, Visarga. Well, it is the creation of Brahma, and the Visarga starts from Brahma. That when he start creating. So, Sarga, Visarga, yeah, both are there. And then we have here this. That's Prithu Maharaj and Archa, I think. Archana, yeah. That, yes, Mother Ambika. Yes.
Hare Krishna, is it the change of Manu?
No. I would say rather the signs of God, the change of Manu, because Prithu Maharaj was not a Manu. He was an incarnation. That, interesting. Then here, Devauti and Kardama Muni. That, yeah. I would say it's also Isha Anukata, Lord's pastimes. And that should be more clear. Nirodha, yeah, he's going back to Godhead, but I would say, what is happening here? Prahlad Maharaj from the rock and Asraya, yes, but I would say is Poshanam, is protected by the Lord, the protection of the Lord. And here, there's Brahma. Brahma is praying to the Lord to get power for empowerment for creation. I think we heard that in the previous chapters. That so this is
sub-creation.
yeah, Visarga. Thank you. And this,
The prayer component here, like it is
Please.
about creation, but at the same time, Brahma is taking shelter of Krishna. Could we
Yeah.
call that part Ashraya?
yes, sure, that's also there. Like I said, different topics can be applied. It's not all black and white. And here we have Matsya avatar. That what does that present? Which of the topics?
Ishanukata.
Ishanukata, but maybe not only the signs of the incarnations, but who is in the boat? So
Manvanta.
yeah, is also protecting King Satyavrata, and is protecting the Vedas. Poshana also. That then we have here what's happening here. Ajamil. That it's a little more difficult, maybe. Mother Ambika, yes.
I would guess that it would be liberation, mukti.
Liberation, yes, because the Yamadutas could not take him. That's surely that liberation. That also Poshanam, they were protecting Ajamil. That and of course, yeah, Sunam Bonam. It's they had a form like Krishna. Okay, and here Lord Shiva is swallowing the poison of the milk ocean that came out at the time of the churning. 8th canto. What is this about? Advaita Krishna Prabhu, please.
It's Poshanam.
Poison is
Protection.
protecting them from the poison. Yeah. That yeah. And then here, that's Gajendra taking shelter of the Lord. That what could we say here?
Well, we have many things happening. Lord is protecting his devotee.
Poshanam
It's the pastime of the Lord, it's the pastime of the devotee.
yeah. The Samambonam is also there. That Mukti, liberation also. Yeah. That's and here that Lord Shiva had the Ganga on his head.
This is Mukti, because the liberation for the sons of Sagara, yeah?
Yeah, that's the pastime, yes. Also, I think Poshanam, because he's protecting the earth, because otherwise who could stop or break the force of the Ganga? That then here this is Krishna rushing towards Bhishmadev. That because he want to protect Arjuna, right? So Poshanam, and then here Ishanukata, yes, that Kalki avatar. And this
Manvantara Maharaj.
Who is this?
Manvantara.
Manvantara.
This is fish incarnation, right?
Fish incarnation. Yeah, that's King Satyavata.
Yeah.
Yeah. That it's not really Manvantara, that's a change of Manus. But Isha Anukata, that.
One Sanucharitam.
Yeah. Then here we have Vamandev appearing. That's also clear. Isha Anukata, and it's going to give protection to Indra. That, well, in some sense. And that is the birth of Krishna, Isha Anukata. And what is this? It's in the water of devastation. Isha Anukata. Oh. Nalakuver Manigeva. Tomorrow Kartik starts. So in what topics should we clarify this? Should we classify this?
Mukti and Ashraya.
Mukti and Asraya. Yes? Good. Then we have here Krishna and Arjuna. On the battlefield. That
But every time it depends whose perspective you are trying to see here. If you are trying to see pastimes of the Lord, then it falls under Ishanu Katha.
yeah.
But if you see the devotee's perspective, like Arjuna surrendered to Krishna, becomes Ashraya. It's a kind of,
Good, very good.
multiple,
Yeah, like I said,
themes you see.
different ways. But sure, we are demonstrating here by going to this exercise that all these topics, they are there in the Bhagavatam. That's Dhruva Maharaj going back to Godhead. What is the
Maharaj, sorry to interrupt. In the previous one, you Arjuna and Krishna, because the souls who were killed in front of the Lord, they get liberation. So could we say also Mukti?
Yeah.
Like Prabhu said, from which angle?
Yeah, that's good. Srila Prabhupada wants us to study the books from different angles of views. Yeah, that's intelligence, that's good. And here, that Dhruva Maharaj entering the airplane. Where is he going?
This is Ashraya.
Asraya, yes.
Or we can say Mukti.
Nirodha, also. Nirodha, got it? That,
Atyantika Nirodha.
yeah. Then here, bit. So we at least two very obvious. Yeah.
Pushana.
Poshana, Murambika.
Yes, Hare Krishna. I wanted to say the same, Boshanam and Sumubonam.
Sumambonam. Yeah. That then we have here. This is Gajendra. Getting liberation, I think. Mukti. Because it's also Asraya. And then where can we classify this? This Bhutan, that
So here is Maharaj liberation of Putana. So
liberation,
mukti of Putana.
That's
But Ishanu
yeah.
Katha, it's Bhagavan's pastime.
Yeah.
But it's not ashray. There is nobody taking surrender, nobody taking
right.
shelter of Krishna.
Good. So here we have all the 10 incarnations. There are much more, but the 10 major ones, that's the signs of God. Good. Can go back to the Bhagavatam now. Share the screen again. So now we go to the second verse. Can someone read the translation? Yeah, Mother Ambika, please read.
Hare Krishna, thank you. To isolate the transcendence of the summum bonum, the symptoms of the rest are described sometimes by Vedic inference, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanations given by the great sages.
Yes. So it says, yes, the purpose of all the topics is to describe the summum bonum at the end. The origin of everything, Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam has the same purpose, is a ripened fruit of all Vedic literature. We know Srila Prabhupada gave titles to each of the cantos, but that does not mean that each title is only found in that particular canto, that topic. It's found also in other, but it's mainly in that canto, is on that topic, and these titles are related to these 10 topics. We find the Sarga in canto 2 and 3, the Visarga in canto 2, 3 and 4, Sthanam in canto 3, 7 and 11, Poshanam, we find it in all cantos practically. The real protection in devotion service is Krishna. And the Uti, Kashyapa, Muni and Diti and so on, canto 3 and 11. Manvantaru Kata, the Manvantaras, that's canto 8. There are a few chapters in the middle, which constantly the Manus and all they are appointed and so on, and all their names with their descendants. And then Isha Anukata we find in canto 4 and 9. Nirodha and Mukti mainly canto 11 and 12. And the Asraya, of course, that is canto 10. So Jiva Goswami says, yes, the topics are described in all cantos, but Srila Prabhupada gives names to the cantos according to these topics. Now, text 3. The elementary creation of 16 items of matter, namely the 5 elements, fire, water, air, sky, sound, form, taste, smell and touch, and the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin and mind is known as Sarga, whereas subsequent resultant interaction of the modes of material nature is called Visarga. Can someone read the purport, please?
I can read Maharaj.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
In order to explain the 10 divisional symptoms of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 7 continuous verses. The first of these, and the reference pertains to it, the 16 elementary manifestations of earth, water, etc., with material ego composed of the material intelligence and mind. The subsequent creation is a result of the reactions of the above-mentioned 16 energies of the first Purusha, the Mahavishnu incarnation of Govinda, as later explained by Brahma in his treatise Brahma Samhita 547 as follows. Yahata nanava jale bhajate sma yogam nidram ananta jagananda saroma kulpa adhara shaktim valambya param samurtim govindamadipurusham tamaham bhajami. The first Purusha incarnation of Govinda, Lord Krishna, known as Mahavishnu, goes into a yoga nidra, mystic sleep, and the innumerable universes are situated in potency in each and every hair hole of his transcendental body. As mentioned in the previous verse, one must refer to the Vedic conclusions, Shrutena, to understand how the creation is made possible from the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly, a manifestation of his particular energies. Without such a Vedic reference, the creation appears to be a product of material nature. The conclusion comes from a poor kind of knowledge. From Vedic reference, it is concluded that the origin of all energies, namely internal, external, and marginal, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as explained here and before, the illusory conclusion is that the creation is made by the inert material nature. The Vedic conclusion is transcendental light, whereas the non-Vedic conclusion is material darkness. The internal potency of the Supreme Lord is identical with the Supreme Lord, and the external potency is enlivened in contact with the internal potency. The parts and parcels of the internal potency which react in contact with the external potency are called the marginal potency or the living entities. Thus, the original creation is directly from Supreme Personality of Godhead or Parabrahma, and the secondary creation as a reactionary result of the original ingredients is made by Brahma. Thus, the activities of the whole universe are started.
So, the verses 3 to 9 here, they are explaining 10 divisional symptoms of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Sangha is a result of the reactions of the above-mentioned 16 energies, which were mentioned in the previous verse, that 16 energies created by the first Purusha, Karanodakasaya Vishnu Mahavishnu, the incarnation of Govinda, which is described here in Brahma Samhita. So the Vedic conclusion is made possible from the Vedic conclusion is the creation comes from the Supreme Personal Godhead directly by manifestation of his particular energies. So the origin of all energies is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is explained here. So the creation is not a product for material nature. That is a wrong conclusion, an illusory conclusion, it is said here in the purport. So the external potency or the material energy is always enlivened with the internal potency. So the original creation is directly coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead or Parabrahman. And the secondary creation is a reaction resulting of the original ingredients created in the Sarga. And that reaction is facilitated by Brahma. So that is the essence here. Text 4. The right situation for the living entities is to obey the laws of the Lord and thus be perfect peace of mind under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Manus and their laws are meant to give right direction in life. The impetus for activity is the desire for fruitive work. Can someone read the purport, please? So, you know, volunteers.
Maharaj, I'll read. Yes, Maharaj, I'll read. This material world is created, maintained for some time, and again annihilated by the will of the Lord. The ingredients for creation and the subordinate creator Brahma are first created by Lord Vishnu in his first and second incarnation. The first Purusha incarnation is Mahavishnu, and the second Purusha incarnation is the Garbhodakshai Vishnu, from whom Brahma is created. The third Vishnu avatar is the Kshirodakshai Vishnu, who lives as the super soul of everything in the universe and maintains the creation generated by Brahma. Shiva is one of the many sons of Brahma, and he annihilates the creation. Therefore, the original creator of the universe is Vishnu, and he is also a maintainer of the created beings by his causeless mercy. As such, it is the duty of all conditioned souls to acknowledge the victory of the Lord, and thus become pure devotees and live peacefully in this world, where miseries and dangers are always in existence. The conditioned souls who take this material creation as a place for satisfaction of the senses, and thus are illusioned by that external energy of Vishnu, remain again to be subjected to the laws of material nature, creation, and destruction. You want me to continue, or somebody else wants to read?
Yeah, someone else can read the next paragraph.
In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that beginning from the topmost planet of this universe down to the lowest planet, Patala Loka, all are destructible, and the conditioned souls may travel in space either by good or by bad work or by modern spacecraft, but they are sure to die everywhere, although the duration of life is in different planets is different. The only means to attain eternal life is to go back home, back to Godhead, where there is no more rebirth as in the material planets. The conditioned souls, being unaware of this very simple fact because of forgetting their relationship with the Lord of Vaikuntha, try to plan out a permanent life in this material world. Being illusioned by the external energy, they thus become engaged in various types of economic and religious development, forgetting that they are meant for going back home, back to Godhead. This forgetfulness is so strong due to the influence of Maya that the conditioned souls do not at all want to go back to Godhead. By sense enjoyment, they become victims of birth and death repeatedly, and thus spoil human lives, which are chances for going back to Vishnu. The directive scriptures made by the Manus in different ages and millenniums are called Sat-Dharma, good guidance for the human beings, who should take advantage of all the revealed scriptures for their own interest, to make life's successful termination. The creation is not false, but it is temporary, a temporary manifestation just to give a chance for the conditioned souls to go back to Godhead. The desire to go back to Godhead and functions performed in that direction from the right path form the right path of work. When such a regulative path is accepted, the Lord gives all protection to his devotees by his causeless mercy, while the non-devotees risk their own activities to bind themselves in a chain of fruitive reactions. The word Sat-Dharma is significant in this connection. Sat-Dharma, or duty performed for going back to Godhead and thus becoming his unalloyed devotee, is the only pious activity. All others may pretend to be pious, but actually they are not. It is for this reason only that the Lord advises in the Bhagavad Gita that one give up all so-called religious activities and completely engage in devotional service of the Lord, to become free from all anxieties due to the dangerous life of material existence. To work to work situated in Sat Dharma is the right direction of life. One's aim of life should be to go back home, back to Godhead, and not to be subjected to repeated births and deaths in the material world by getting good or bad bodies for temporary existence. Herein lies the intelligence of human life, and one should desire the activities of life in that way.
Yes, so the only means to attain eternal life is to go back to Godhead. The conditioned soul, being aware of this very simple fact because of forgetting their relationship with Krishna, with the Lord of Vaikuntha, try to plan out permanent life in the material world. And that's the most amazing thing, that the Yakshas did question to Yudhishthira Maharaj, what's the most amazing thing, and that is the answer. They try to plan permanent life in the material world, which is temporary. They forget they may die every moment. So the conditioned souls do not at all want to go back to Godhead. That's quite a statement. The creation is not false, it's a temporary manifestation, but it gives a chance for the conditioned soul to go back to Godhead. So there is also in the purport the Manus. The Manus are there to give instructions for mankind with the purpose to bring them back to Godhead. And therefore the Manus, every time they have to every time a new Manu appears, then again the religious principles has to be re-established. So there are in one day of Brahma there are 71, there are 14 Manus, and each Manu lives 71 cycles of Divya Yuga, that long life, but of course by every new Manu, a new Indra is there, and the new 7 sages, they are all appointed every time that the whole set of demigods is changed by each Manu. That's explained all in the 8th canto. But the desire to go back to Godhead and functions performed in that direction form the right path of work. Srila Prabhupada writes, when such regulative path is accepted, the Lord gives protection to all his devotees by his causeless mercy, while the non-devotee risk their own activities to bind themselves in a chain of fruitive reactions. Saddharma is mentioned here, and that's significant. Saddharma means one gives up all so-called religious activities. Sarvadharmam prityaga, mamekam saramvaja. And then one completely engages in the devotion service to the Lord to become free from all anxieties due to the dangerous life of material existence. Now text 5 is about Ishanukata. So the signs of God describe the incarnations of the personality of Godhead and his different activities, together with the activities of his great devotees. Purport. During the course of the existence of the cosmic manifestation, the chronology of history is created, recording the activities of the living entities. People in general have a tendency to learn the history and narrations of different men and times, but due to lack of knowledge in the science of Godhead, they are not apt to study the history of the incarnation of the personality of Godhead. It should always be remembered that the material creation is created for the salvation of the conditioned souls. The merciful Lord, out of his causeless mercy, descends to various planets in the material world and acts for salvation of the conditioned souls, that makes the history and narrations worth reading. Srimad Bhagavatam offers such transcendental topics of the Lord in relationship with lay devotees. Therefore, the topics of the devotees and the Lord are to be given respectful oral reception. So the merciful Lord, out of his causeless mercy, descends to various planets in this material world, and he acts for the salvation of the conditioned souls. So that makes the history recorded in the Bhagavatam and all the narrations worth reading. Therefore, the topics of the devotees and the Lord are to be given oral reception. It's a cause of liberation. And now the next verse gives, this is important in the sense that it gives us a definition of what liberation means. If someone asks you, what do you mean with liberation? Then the second line of this verse gives the definition. So that could be a question for your exam. I remember that I got that question many years ago. Explain the definition of liberation from text 6 of the 10th chapter. So, the merging of the living entity along with its conditional living tendency with the mystic lying down of the Mahavishnu is called the winding up of the cosmic manifestation. Liberation is the permanent situation of the form of the living entity after it gives up changeable gross and subtle material bodies. So liberation is the permanent situation of the form. And that's the spiritual soul as a form, and that's the spiritual body. And we get a mind and an intelligence, a subtle body and a gross body, and that at death we get rid of the gross body, but then the subtle body is still there. And on that subtle body grows then a new gross body in the womb of the next mother. So we must get rid of the subtle body to get liberation. That ends the subtle body, and that is liberation. So how to get rid of this subtle material body? We have the subtle material body means manas, buddhi, ahankar. So how do we get rid of the manas, the mind, by spiritualizing the mind? And how do we get rid of the buddhi? Also by spiritualizing. But how do we spiritualize the mind? We spiritualize the mind by thinking of Krishna. In Sri Upanishad, Krishna is described as antiseptic and prophylactic. Antiseptic means that we become purified of the coverings, the material coverings of lust, anger, greed, and so on. And it becomes spiritualized. And how do we spiritualize the buddhi? By transcendental knowledge, by hearing the Bhagavatam, by hearing Bhagavad Gita. And if the mind and intelligence is purified, what happens with the ahankar, the false ego? It's not there anymore. So that's the process of liberation in a nutshell. We will answer questions at the end, if it's okay. We will keep some time for that. So we will not read the purport here, but I will explain what's in the purport and what's significant here. It explains there are two types of living entities. Most of them are ever liberated, or nitya muktas, while some of them are ever conditioned. So material nature gives two kinds of facilities to the ever conditioned soul. One facility is that the conditioned soul can act according to its tendency, lord it over the cosmic manifestation, and the other facility is it gives the conditioned soul a chance to go back to Godhead and attain spiritual and original bodies after quitting of the conditioned gross and subtle body. Well, the spiritual original body is there, but it's covered over. That's what Srila Prabhupada many times explains. He says, you see this hand, we see the gross hand, beneath the gross hand is the subtle hand, and beneath the subtle hand is the spiritual hand. So it's covered, and the spiritual body is active, because the spiritual body you can only use in devotional service. If you try to use it for selfish acts, you come to this material world. You get a gross and a subtle body. You enter, we remain in the spiritual world in some sense, because the whole creation is the kingdom of God, but unfortunately we are in the prison section, a black cloud. So the material conditional bodies develop out of the living entity's forgetfulness of their relationship with Krishna, and that's the point. Krishna is everywhere in the material world. He's in our heart. He is in our heart. He's in every atom. He's between every atom, everywhere. And Krishna says, material nature is the doer, and I control material nature as a super soul. So that's he's doing practically everything. We have also our part in the doing, but we don't see him. Because we forget our relationship with Krishna, that our consciousness is covered. But by hearing and reading such transcendental literatures, it will help one to become liberated in the conditioned state of material existence. So the Vedic hymns reveal that the Lord is the supreme source of all attraction, and one who is fortunate can get this information from Srimad Bhagavatam and becomes permanently liberated. Text 7, that in text 7, in the purport here, Srila Prabhupada will explain how everything leads to Krishna. Translation. The Supreme One who is celebrated as a Supreme Being, or the Supreme Soul, is the supreme source of cosmic manifestation as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus he is the supreme fountainhead, the absolute truth. So Srimad Bhagavatam before had already accepted the conclusions Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svayam, that also it's mentioned by Brahma in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sakshidananda Vigraha. The original source of all energies is the Samam Bonan, is the absolute truth. It's called Parabrahman. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the representation of Lord Krishna as sound incarnation of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.43. Krishna svadamo parate dharma jnana tipisaha kalana srishamesha purnarko dunotitaha. So Krishna appeared in the form of the Bhagavatam to give the light to the people of Kali Yuga. Now, the Asraya Tattva is described in verse 8. That this verse shows that it shows the true character of the Asraya by dividing who are in subdivisions. It shows how we are not independent, that everything depends on the Asraya Tattva. That's the theme here. And it speaks about Adidevik, the Adibautic, and Adhyatmic person. The Adhyatmic is the one who is controlled. The Adidevik is the one who controls. And the Adibautic is the person who gets the body, and it's his body which is controlled by the Adidevik. So that's the essence. So the individual person possessing different instruments of senses is called the Adhyatmic person, and the individual controlling deity of the senses is called Adidevik. The embodiment sees on the eyeballs is called the Adibautic person. So all the controlling deities like Vishnu, Brahma and Shiva are different manifestation of the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who exhibits himself in such a manner by entering in each and every universe. That each and every universe which is generated from him. So the controlled living entity is the Adhyatmic person, and the controller is the Adidevik person. So all these positions in the material world are due to different fruitive activities. You can become, we are Adibautic, we are embodied, but you can become a demigod, Adidevik. So all these positions in the material world are due to different fruitive activities. So every living entity is subject to the supreme control of Paramatma, who puts everyone in different positions of the controller and the controlled. But even the controller is not the ultimate controller. So the material body is called the Adibautic person, the person who sees but you need Adidevik person, the sun, to get light. Otherwise, that will not happen. So the Adibautic person has a material body. It's called an anarasa embodiment, a body depending on food. The gross body depends on food. The material body requires replacement of matter for the wearing and tearing of this mechanical body, this biological construction. Therefore, the distinction between the individual living entity and the controlled planetary deities is the Ana-Rasamaya body. The demigods don't have that. But both are spiritual parts of the Supreme. Of the Supreme Being, and all three are interdependent, and that's further explained also in the next verse. Their existence depends on each other. Text 9. All three of the above mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood. But the Supreme Being as a shelter of the shelter sees every one of them and is independent of all. Therefore, he is the Supreme Shelter. So there are innumerable living entities, and one is dependent on the other in the relationship of the controlled and the controller. But without a medium of perception, no one can know or understand who is controlled and who is the controller. And the analogy is given here, sunlight and eyesight. They are interdependent, so the demigods give the sunlight, the sun god. And without light, there is no question of eyesight. So they are interdependent. The one who has made such a relationship of interdependence must be the ultimate independent. Krishna has made that relationship. So the ultimate source of all interdependence is the supreme truth, or Paramatma, the supersoul, who is not dependent on anything. So he is the Svasraya, only dependent on himself, and thus the supreme shelter of everyone. He made them interdependent. Because Bhagavan is Purushottam, the Supreme Person, he is the source of the Supersoul also. So the Jiva is forgetful, but the Supersoul is not forgetful. Bhagavad Gita 7:26, Vedam Samatitani. So I know past, present and future, Arjuna, but you do not. So that is the difference, and that is the section of today. So I look forward to hear your questions and comments, please. Yes, Mother Kanta, please speak.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj and dear devotees. My question is about the liberation, about mukti. As far as I remember, in the Bhagavad Gita, the concept is that liberation is the state beyond the modes of material nature, is the stage of Brahma Bhuta.
Yeah.
There's a different definition. Why they're different, and what is the main definition, maybe? In what context we should use them?
Of course, in Bhagavad Gita I said, Mamsya Vyapicharina Bhakti-yogana Sevata Sakadan Samatichi Tam Brahma Bhuya Kalpate. By unalloyed devotional service, you can transcend the modes of liberation, the modes of nature, and come to the liberated state. So that's the process. The other is the state. The state of being liberated is being freed from the gross and the material body. But devotional service is the process. But then it says also in Nectar of the Devotion, Iya yasya aredasye karmana manasagara Nikolash apavastasya jivan mukta sauchate. One who always engages one's body, mind and senses in the service of the Lord is called a liberated person. So that is the process, that if one does that always, one is already implicitly liberated, because he will soon be purified and become liberated. But it means, yes, one is liberated, thus one can still be in the body and liberated, but one does not identify anymore with the body. And what's the symptom of that? The symptom is you don't suffer anymore in material world. When Srila Prabhupada came back in 1977, Bhakti Charamaj was taking care of him, my spiritual master, and then he became better. And at the end of August 1977, he wanted to go to America. And he took a flight to London, but in London he became very sick again. And mostly he was in bed the whole day. And one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, when he was lying in bed, Srila Prabhupada, are you suffering? And he said, Srila Prabhupada replied, I don't feel anything. So that's liberated. But our Prarabdha karma is still there. Thus this body is still there. But when it ends, because the subtle body has gone, you think already in your spiritual body. You think in your spiritual body. Your mental, it's not. Yeah, you are acting with your spiritual body already. And then when the gross body falls away, you are liberated. You go. That is the point, that Prarabdha karma is still there. Otherwise, we would just disappear. Because this body means karma. Does that clarify a bit?
Can we say that liberation, as you said, is a process which starts in this body when we do everything and for Krishna and think about Krishna, and this verse describes the end of this process when we leave also the gross body.
Yeah, so this process, this verse describes the end result. Yeah, but there is a process to get liberation. That's right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Advaita Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much. I have a few questions. My first question would be, at the stage of Sharga, when the jivas are, so to speak, injected into Pradhana, at this point, from the previous dissolution, they have no ego. And is it at this point that they get the ego, but the modes of material nature are not yet agitated? Can we say that?
That's described in the process of creation, more detailed in the third canto. So there is Brahman and the Karanodakasaya Vishnu, Mahavishnu, with his glance, put the three modes of material nature unmanifested in Brahman. And then with his glance, he adds time and he injects the living entities.
Yes.
And the living entities are still full with material desires. And so the three modes are in equilibrium. Passion, ignorance, and goodness are in equilibrium. But that the desires of the material, of these conditioned souls, they break that equilibrium and it starts to move. And then it's explained that by the combination of because it starts to move, and the first thing that manifested is their false ego. And that false ego combined then with the mode of goodness will create the element mind. Mind together with the demigods, which govern the mind. And then when this ahankar combined with the mode of passion, then it creates the intelligence. One can say the intelligence, the mode of passion, but yes, that's what we want. The living entity want to enjoy. So you need an intelligence to make plans for enjoyment. Therefore, but that does not mean that the intelligence must stay in passion. And then ahankar combines with tamas, ignorance, and creates ether, earth, fire, water, all the 5 elements with their presiding deities and so on. That's a whole explanation, but we will hear that deeper in the 3rd canto. Is that okay, Advaita Krishna?
Yes, okay, because I thank you, Maharaj. Yes, because I did notice something that I in one of the purport you just read, and that's where the question came in. But yeah, that explains it nicely. Now, Maharaj, my other question is, the material body develops. Can we say that the material body that we have, the different senses, develops out of the subtle body, but in effect, the subtle body just under it the soul has its own spiritual body?
Well, we heard all this already in the 1st canto, chapter 7. There in verses 4 to 6, of the 7th chapter of the 1st canto, there we have Srila Vyasadeva sharing his realization when he meditates with devotion on the Absolute Truth. And there is the purpose. Srila Prabhupada said, the living entity has its own thinking, feeling and willing in the unconditional state also. So that's normal. To think as a spirit soul and to feel and so on. But these emotions have now been taken over by the mind. But we have to get rid of this mind, and then we get our original thinking, feeling, willing back. That's clearly explained there in the purport. I don't know which purport, but it's either from text 4, 5 or 6 from the 7th chapter of the 1st canto. There it's found.
Yes, I think we...
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then,
my last question is,
yeah.
So can we say, in relationship to the relationship between the Adhyatmic, Adhibhautik and Adhidevic, can we say the Adhyatmic is a seer?
The Adhyatmic is the seer, is the person who possesses the senses, who possesses the senses, who possesses the body.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. So, Nilamani Prabhu, please.
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, I'm struggling with this concept of, in this last verse, this Adhyatmic, Adhidevic, and Adhibhautik.
Yeah.
So when we identify with ourselves, basically we've heard that we are a Jivatma. We individually are Jivatma. So that is referring, my understanding is the Adhyatmic portion. But is this now saying that the extension of our identity is also that we also have an Adhyatmic, Adhidevic kind of, I don't know how to describe Adhidevic portion and an Adhibhautik. Adhibhautik, I guess, is the material body, right? So is it just different ways of identifying who we actually are as an individual jiva? Trying to relate the jiva to these concepts.
Yeah, first you have the Adhyatmic, means Adhyatmic Atma. The person in the body is called the Adhyatmic person, is the one who sees through the mind, through the senses. That's Adhyatmic. And if the soul, what is activity of the soul? It desires, right? That's desiring is activity of the soul. Or it may identify with desires that pop up in the mind. That's another thing. But it's the soul who confirms I want to fulfill this desire. So when on Sunday feast lecture, sometimes I explain the soul wants to move the arm, and Paramatma in the heart notices that desire of the soul, of the Adhyatmic person, the soul. So he notices that. It's the Atma, but it's called Adhyatmic because it's connected with the body, because it identifies himself with the body. So that's Adhyatmic. And then Paramatma in the heart sees this person wants to move his hand. And Krishna's Paramatma in the heart makes a phone call to the demigods, and that is an Adhidevic person. Many Adhidevic persons. This person wants to move his hand down here. So please have a meeting and discuss how to combine your energies to move the hand of this person down here. So then the Adidevic person, the demigods, they have a meeting and discuss how to combine their energies to move the hand according to the desire of the Adhyatmic person. Yes, because then they come to an agreement and they call back Paramatma in the heart. We have a plan now to move his hand. And then the Paramatma is the sanctioner. He says, go for it. And they execute their plan and the hand moves. It's moved by the demigods, by a combination of their energies. The demigod who is responsible for the airs, the other for the muscles, and so yes, the person who sees this is called the Adibautic person, because the Adibautic means the embodied, one who identifies with the body. That is what is meant here. They are interdependent, these three. Does that clarify or does that confuse you further?
I'm still a little confused now. So, I mean, Adibautika, I understood, is just our gross body made of
that's the body.
earth, water, air, etc.
The material body is Adibautic person, but it's not the person, it's the body. It's just the body. And Adhyatmic person is a person who observes that the Adibautic body sees, because it's matter and we see but it is Adhyatmic person who experiences it because of identifying with the body. That it's subtle, but requires a lot of contemplation to understand that. I agree.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Shyam Kishore Prabhu, please.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Maharaj. So, apologies, I got a little, I'm not very clear about this whole framework. So, like what we've discussed, Adhyatmic, Adibautic. So, in all this, where does willpower come? It's a more mundane question. When we see in day-to-day life, we see that, there are some people who demonstrate a more superior willpower than other people. They are able to, say, overcome adversity or, do. So how does that work? Is it they are shouting out to the demigods louder than the other, or how is that one person shows a higher willpower than the other person? If we are talking about this whole framework of how action is approved and sanctioned.
Yes, but it starts with our desire. If you don't desire to move your hand, your hand will not move. That even if you desire to move your hand, if Krishna does not sanction it, and the Adidevic person does not sanction it, your hand will not move. So it's interdependent. But yes, it depends on our desire. That whether you can, of course, for moving the hand. But there are other instances. You eat, and you are going to digest. Who is doing the digestion? It's the Adidevic person who controls the digestion. So these are higher powers. There we are completely controlled. So you have different, Because Krishna says, I give you remembrance, forgetfulness, knowledge. That is also depending on this interaction. But if you become a devotee, then you get out of this. The Dhammi Buddhi Yogam Tam, Krishna gives you direct knowledge to the soul from within the heart and realization. Then you come out of it. That's a different kind of knowledge. And that's a difference between mundane knowledge and spiritual knowledge. Anyway, so much to say on this. Does that help? Shyam Kishore.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Okay, so thank you. I'm in Montreal today. Tomorrow I will be flying to, no, tomorrow morning I'm still here in Montreal for the next session. And the day after I'm flying to Halifax. That is another time zone. But I'm looking forward to see you tomorrow, to go to the next section, which is verses 10 to 18. This chapter possesses very important answers, which will be explored further in the Bhagavatam. It's just an introduction of all these topics. But we get an idea what we will hear in the rest of the Bhagavatam in more detail. Thank you very much. I look forward to see you tomorrow. Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.